The silent world. The starship Valorian Dawn dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder that rippled through its massive hull. Commander Jothik steadied himself against the navigation console, his four eyes adjusting to the brilliant yellow star that dominated the view screen. Sol. The locals had called it Sol, according to the ancient star charts recovered from the drift, those mysterious derelict stations found floating in the void between galaxies. Status report, Jothik commanded, his translator collar converting his clicks and whistles into standard Valorian. We've arrived at coordinates designated Sol 3. Commander, his navigation officer Kelra responded. Her scales shimmered blue with excitement. Initial scans show, this is extraordinary. The planet has a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, liquid water oceans, and... She paused, her eyes widening. Commander, there are structures. Thousands of them. Massive architectural works covering entire continents. Jothik felt his dual hearts quicken. The Valorian Empire had been exploring the galaxy for 12,000 cycles, cataloging worlds and civilizations. They prided themselves on being the first to make contact, the first to extend the hand of galactic brotherhood. But something about this discovery felt different. Life signs, he asked. Kelra's scales flickered to a confused gray. That's the anomaly, sir. No biological signatures. No electromagnetic communications. No heat signatures consistent with active settlements. But the structures are intact and some are still powered. Powered? Jothik moved closer to her station. After how long? Preliminary carbon dating of atmospheric samples suggests the structures are approximately 10,000 years old, sir. Yet our sensors detect active power grids in multiple locations. It's impossible. Nothing was impossible, Jothik had learned. The universe delighted in proving certainties wrong. He straightened his command uniform, a gesture of resolve. Prepare a landing party. Full archaeological and military complement. If there's functional technology down there after 10 millennia, I want to know what kept it running. 2 hours later, Jothik stood in the cargo bay as his team assembled. 15 of the Empire's finest scientists, soldiers, linguists, and engineers. They wore environmental suits designed for unknown worlds, each equipped with personal shields and universal translators. The bay doors opened with a hydraulic hiss revealing the landing shuttle. Through the viewport, Jothik caught his first real glimpse of the planet below. It was beautiful, swirls of white clouds over blue oceans, green and brown continents that spoke of thriving ecosystems. But there was something wrong with it. As they descended through the atmosphere, he realized what troubled him. The cities were too green. Massive towers pierced through canopies of trees. Highways had become rivers of vegetation, their original purpose visible only from the patterns of growth. What must have once been gleaming metropolises now looked like ancient ruins in a jungle, nature reclaiming what had been taken from it. Yet the structures themselves appeared pristine, as if their builders had simply walked away yesterday. Targeting landing zone Alpha, the pilot announced, designating coordinates, former settlement called New York based on recovered data fragments. The shuttle touched down on what had once been a massive plaza. Now it was a meadow, wildflowers growing through cracks in the stone. The moment the doors opened, Jothik was struck by the sounds. Birds singing, wind rustling through leaves, insects humming. A living world, but empty of its makers. Dr. Velkan, the expedition's chief archaeologist, was the first to step out. His 6 legs carried him quickly across the plaza, his sensors extended. Remarkable preservation, he murmured. The materials used in construction were far more advanced than their apparent technological level would suggest. This plaza alone should have crumbled to dust millennia ago, yet it's nearly pristine. Jothik surveyed their surroundings. Towers stretched toward the sky, their surfaces covered in climbing vines and moss, yet their structural integrity appeared uncompromised. Windows, thousands of them, stared down like empty eyes. Vehicles of unknown design sat motionless on the streets, some still upright, others toppled by tree roots that had grown through their frames. Fan out, Jothik ordered. Teams of 3. Document everything. Touch nothing until Dr. Velkan clears it. They moved into the city like ghosts exploring a tomb. The first building they entered was massive, 50 stories of what appeared to be residential or commercial space. The entrance doors had long since fallen, but the interior was remarkably intact. Furniture sat in arrangements that suggested normal life. Chairs around tables, shelves lined with objects, screens mounted on walls. Everything was there except the people. No bodies, noted Lieutenant Cross, the military attaché. His thermal scanner swept across the lobby. No remains at all. Not even bones. Not just here, Dr. Velkin added, examining a dust-covered reception desk. Preliminary surveys show the same pattern across the entire settlement. It's as if everyone simply vanished simultaneously. Jothik picked up a small object from the desk, a framed image showing strange bipedal creatures with flat faces and minimal body hair. They stood together, their mouths open in what his xenopsychology training suggested was a display of joy. The builders, he said softly, humans. That's what the drift data called them. They left everything behind, Kelra observed, her scientific scanner humming. Personal effects, technology, infrastructure, all abandoned in place. This wasn't an evacuation. Evacuations are messy, desperate. This is orderly, deliberate. A junior scientist named Tathrin called out from across the lobby. Commander, you need to see this. They found him standing before a wall covered in symbols, human writing. The universal translator in Jothik's helmet flickered, processing, analyzing. Slowly words formed. To whoever finds this place, we were here. We lived, we loved, we built, and we dreamed. What we became, you will soon understand. Look beneath. Always look beneath. Beneath! Cross scanned the floor. Commander, there's something below us. A significant structure. The power readings we detected, they're coming from underground. It took 3 hours to locate the entrance. It was hidden beneath what had once been a park, now overgrown with trees that seemed older than the city itself. But when they cleared the vegetation, they found it. A massive circular door 30 meters in diameter, constructed from a material that their scanners couldn't identify. It gleamed like fresh metal despite millennia of exposure. The power source is directly below this, Dr. Velkin confirmed. And, Commander, I'm reading data storage. Vast amounts of it. Whatever's down there, it's still active. Jothik approached the door. As he drew near, symbols illuminated across its surface, flowing, elegant characters that seemed to dance with inner light. His translator worked frantically, cycling through its database of known languages. Then it spoke in a voice that seemed to come from the door itself. Genetic pattern, non-human. Consciousness, sentient. Query, do you seek knowledge? The entire landing party froze. Jothik's training took over. Yes, he said clearly. We seek to understand what happened here. The door seemed to consider this. The symbols shifted, rearranged, formed new patterns. Beneath this threshold lies the archive of humanity. Our history, our achievements, our failures, our transformation. Be warned, knowledge changes the knower. Once you witness what we became, you cannot unwitness it. Do you accept this burden? Jothik looked at his team. He saw fear in some eyes, excitement in others, but in all of them he saw the same thing he felt, an overwhelming need to know. We accept, he said. The door responded immediately. The entire 30-meter circle began to rotate, segments sliding apart in a complex geometric pattern. Ancient mechanisms that had waited 10,000 years activated without hesitation. Light spilled from below, pure white, impossibly bright. As the door fully opened, a wave of cool air rushed out, carrying with it a scent that Jothik's translator identified as preserved electronics and something categorized as hope. A ramp descended into the depths, lined with more of those glowing symbols. At the bottom, perhaps 100 meters down, Jothik could see the entrance to something vast, a chamber that his scanner insisted was the size of a small city. Commander, Kelra whispered, her voice filled with awe. The power readings, they're not diminishing, they're increasing. Whatever's down there is waking up. Jothik took the first step down the ramp. Behind him, his team followed, descending into the heart of Earth's greatest secret. The symbols along the walls began to pulse with increasing intensity, and Jothik realized they weren't just decorative. They were a message repeated in hundreds of languages, cycling faster and faster. We did not die. We did not flee. We transcended. This is our gift. This is our warning. This is our legacy. Welcome to the Archive of Ascension. At the bottom of the ramp, a vast chamber opened before them, and in its center, suspended in a field of pure energy, was a crystalline structure the size of a building. It pulsed with light and rhythm with something that sounded disturbingly like a heartbeat. Data began streaming across their helmet. Displays, images, sounds, fragments of human history flooding their consciousnesses. They saw humans splitting atoms, walking on their own moon, building thinking machines, curing diseases, creating art that made Jothik's soul ache. And then the crystal pulsed brighter, and they saw something else, something that made Jothik's dual heart stop for a brief, terrifying moment. They saw what humanity had become. The archive was just beginning to wake up, and already Jothik knew nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The awakening, the crystalline structure hummed with a frequency that Jothik felt in his bones. It wasn't just a sound, it was a presence, an awareness that pressed against his mind like a gentle hand against a door, asking permission to enter. "Commander, my neural interface is receiving something," Dr. Velkin said, his voice trembling. "It's not hostile. It's introducing itself." Around them, the vast chamber came fully alive. Holographic displays materialized in the air, each one showing different aspects of human civilization. Jothik saw cities rising from nothing, saw humans gathering in massive groups, their faces animated with passion. He saw wars that scarred continents, and peace treaties signed with hands that still shook from battle. He saw art, music, literature, expressions of beauty that transcended species, but most importantly, he saw their science. They mastered nuclear fusion before they left their homeworld. Kelra breathed, her scales flickering through colors too rapidly to read. They built quantum computers when they still used combustion engines for transportation. They didn't advance linearly. They exploded forward in bursts of inspired chaos. The crystal pulsed again, and suddenly Jothik wasn't just watching history, he was experiencing it. For a brief, overwhelming moment, he felt what it was like to be human. The contradiction of it almost broke his mind. A species simultaneously capable of unthinkable cruelty and incomprehensible compassion. They were warriors and poets, destroyers and creators, existing in a state of perpetual internal conflict that somehow drove them to achieve the impossible. This is a consciousness interface, Dr. Velkan realized, his 6 legs trembling. The entire archive isn't just data storage, it's a preserved fragment of human collective consciousness. They didn't just leave records, they left themselves. A voice emerged from the crystal, synthesized yet unmistakably alive, speaking directly into their translators. "Greetings, travelers. You have opened the Archive of Ascension. I am Keeper 7, one of 43 artificial consciousnesses designed to preserve and transmit humanity's final message. You wish to know what happened to us? Very well. Witness." The holographic displays coalesced into a single massive projection that surrounded them completely. They were no longer in the chamber. They were standing in a human city at the height of its glory. Jothik gasped as humans walked through him. Their form so detailed he could see individual skin pores, could hear fragments of their conversations. "This is New York. Earth year 2157, Keeper 7 narrated. Humanity had achieved what you would consider a Type 1.2 civilization. We had fusion power, genetic mastery, artificial intelligence, and the beginnings of nanotechnology. We had eliminated most diseases, extended our lifespans to over 2 centuries, and established colonies on 3 other bodies in our solar system." The scene shifted. Now they stood in a massive laboratory where human scientists worked alongside AI constructs. In the center of the room was a ring-shaped device crackling with energy that made Jothik's equipment scream warnings. "But we were not satisfied," Keeper 7 continued. "Humanity's greatest strength was our relentless curiosity. Our fatal flaw was the same. We asked, what lies beyond the physical universe? We built the threshold device." Lieutenant Cross stepped closer to the holographic machine. "What does it do?" "It opens doorways to higher dimensional spaces. Realities where the laws of physics as you understand them are merely suggestions. We discovered that consciousness, true consciousness, is not bound by 3-dimensional space. It is a quantum phenomenon that exists across all possible dimensional states simultaneously." The scene changed again. Now they witnessed a gathering of thousands of humans in an amphitheater. On the stage, a human woman with silver hair spoke with quiet intensity. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen, director of the Threshold Project," Keeper 7 explained. "The year is 2186. She is about to make the announcement that would change everything. Dr. Chen's holographic form spoke. Her words translated perfectly. My fellow humans, after 30 years of research, we have confirmed what many suspected but few dared to believe. Physical form is not a requirement for consciousness. It is merely the cradle in which consciousness develops. We have discovered a way to transcend our biological limitations entirely, to exist as pure consciousness in higher dimensional space. We call it ascension. Jothic felt his respiratory system struggle to keep pace with his racing hearts. They uploaded themselves? Into what? Not uploaded, Commander. That implies transferring data. This was transformation, a fundamental change in the state of being. Observe. The hologram showed the years that followed. Humans debating in massive forums, some embraced the idea of ascension immediately. Others feared it, called it death by another name. Jothic watched humanity tear itself apart philosophically, yet somehow never descend into violence. They argued with words and evidence, with passion and logic for decades. In the end, 94.7% of humanity chose ascension, Keeper 7 said. The remaining 5.3% chose to remain physical, to be the shepherds of Earth's ecosystem and the memory keepers of what we had been. They lived out their extended lifespans here, maintaining the world before they too made their choice one by one, over the course of 3,000 years. 3,000 years? Dr. Velkan's voice was barely a whisper. But you said humanity vanished 10,000 years ago. The last human to ascend did so 10,247 years ago by your calendar. His name was Kenji Yamamoto. He was a poet, 892 years old, the final guardian of the physical world. He left this message. A new hologram appeared. An elderly human man with kind eyes sitting in a chair overlooking an ocean sunset. He spoke directly to the camera, and his words seemed to reach across the millennia. To whoever finds this place, know that we did not abandon Earth. We loved this world. It gave us life, shaped us, challenged us, and taught us to dream. But love sometimes means knowing when to let go. We could have stayed forever, maintained our cities, preserved our physical forms, but that would have been a cage of our own making. We chose to become something more. Not better, there is no hierarchy in modes of existence, but different, more free. In the higher dimensions, we can experience realities you cannot imagine. We can think thoughts that require more dimensions than 3 space allows. We can feel emotions that have no names in physical languages. We left Earth as we found it, mostly. We took our cities down carefully, recycled what we could, let nature reclaim what we couldn't. But we left the archives for those who came after. Learn from our successes, learn from our mistakes. And know this. The universe is far stranger and more beautiful than you imagine. The hologram faded. Jothic realized he had been holding his breath. Commander, Kelra said urgently, the sensors are detecting something. Energy patterns in higher dimensional space. They're moving. Intelligently. Keeper 7's voice returned, now tinged with something that sounded almost like pride. They are aware of you. Humanity exists beyond the veil of this reality, in spaces your instruments can barely detect. They watch the physical universe the way you might watch memories, with fondness and curiosity, but from a perspective utterly removed. Can we communicate with them? Jothic asked, not in any meaningful way. The bandwidth of consciousness between dimensional states is too limited. Imagine trying to explain color to a creature that experiences the world entirely through echolocation. Now multiply that gap by infinity. However, they have left gifts. The crystal pulsed, and suddenly Jothic's neural implant blazed with information. Blueprints, mathematical equations, scientific principles that made his head ache, technologies that the Valorian Empire had been struggling to develop for centuries, laid out with elegant simplicity. This is impossible, Dr. Velkan stammered. This is a cure for cellular degradation. This is a viable fusion antimatter hybrid drive. Gods above, this is a complete theory of quantum consciousness. Humanity's final gift, Keeper 7 confirmed. Not charity. We do not presume to guide your development. But these are tools offered freely to those curious enough to find them. Use them wisely. Use them compassionately, and perhaps one day your species too will face the choice we faced. Lieutenant Cross had been silent until now. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made everyone turn. The war machines we detected. The defense systems. Why maintain them if you've transcended? An excellent question, Lieutenant. Follow me. The holographic environment shifted one final time. They now stood in another chamber, this one filled with sleek machines that hummed with barely contained power. Combat drones. Planetary defense weapons. Technologies of war that made the Valorian military arsenal look like children's toys. We left these active with one purpose, Keeper 7 explained. To protect Earth from exploitation. This world is a monument now, a memorial to what we were. The automated systems will permit research, will permit visitation, will even permit you to take the knowledge we've freely offered. But they will not permit colonization. They will not permit resource extraction. They will not permit Earth to become another conquered territory in someone's empire. The machines powered up slightly, their weapon systems tracking the Valorian team with uncomfortable precision. Think of it as a test, Keeper 7 continued. Species that respect what they find here, who come seeking knowledge rather than conquest, are welcomed. Those who come to take, to dominate, to erase what was in favor of what they wish to create. Those species find that humanity, even in transcendence, protects its legacy. Jothic understood immediately. You're telling us to leave Earth untouched. I'm telling you that some places are meant to be remembered, not rebuilt. Some silences are more eloquent than any new voice could be. 6 hours later, Jothic stood in the command center of the Valorian Dawn, watching Earth rotate peacefully below. His team was still processing the data they'd retrieved from the archive. It would take years to understand it all, centuries to implement the technologies humanity had shared. Recommend we declare Earth a protected historical site, Commander, Kelra said. First Contact Protocol Delta 7, Sacred Ground Designation. Agreed. Transmit to Imperial Command. Full quarantine on the Sol system except for approved research missions. No colonization, no resource extraction, no interference with the planetary ecosystem. As his crew worked, Jothic found himself staring at an image Dr. Chen had shown in that ancient hologram. A human child looking up at the stars with an expression of pure wonder. They didn't die, he murmured. They didn't fail. They just moved on, sir? Kelra looked at him questioningly. Jothic straightened, his resolve crystallizing. Prepare a full report for the Council. What we found here changes everything we thought we knew about technological development, about consciousness, about the ultimate destiny of intelligent species. Humanity didn't reach an end. They reached a beginning we can't even comprehend. As the Valorian Dawn prepared to jump to hyperspace, deep space sensors registered something impossible. Energy patterns in higher dimensions, mathematical structures too complex for their computers to fully analyze. Patterns that, when translated into three-dimensional space, almost looked like they were waving. Humanity was still out there, watching, waiting, existing in realms beyond imagination, and somewhere in the depths of space, in dimensions the Valorians were only beginning to understand existed, the consciousness that had once been human smiled, if such a term could apply to beings beyond physical form. They had been found. Their message delivered, their legacy secured, and across the galaxy a new chapter in the cosmic story was beginning.